I want you to read chapter 18 for yourself and the first half of 19, because I'm going to try and give you the bigger picture on what happened on Thursday night and Friday morning. After the Last Supper, Jesus and the disciples went out of the city gates, across the Kidron Valley, and up to the Garden of Gethsemane. Here Judas led the soldiers to arrest Jesus. They took him back inside the walls, back into the city, and to the home of Annas, the former high priest. Then they took him to Caiaphas, the present high priest and father-in-law of Annas, and then in the early hours of the morning they called the Sanhedrin, and the ruling body proclaimed that Jesus was guilty of blasphemy. These three trials were with the Jewish authorities, but they needed the secular authorities to proclaim the death sentence. So they dragged Jesus across the city about 1 kilometre to the palace of Pilate, the Roman governor. When Pilate found out that Jesus was a Galilean, he sent him back across the city to the home of Herod, where his palace was. He was in charge of Galilee. Herod was delighted because he thought that he could get Jesus to do a miracle, but Jesus said nothing. Herod mocked him and sent him back to Pilate. Pilate spent some time interrogating Jesus. He knew he was innocent, but finally gave in to the crowd to have him crucified, and he was led carrying his cross out through the city gates and to Golgotha. Now, what were the accusations that they made about Jesus? The first one, let's have a look at Mark chapter 14, verses 56 to 59. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, "I will destroy this man-made temple, and in 3 days will build another one not made by man." Yet even then, their testimonies did not agree. So they falsely accused him. And then the Sanhedrin accused him of blasphemy because he said that he was the Son of God. But they wanted Pilate to pronounce the death sentence, so they changed the charge to treason. Chapter 19, verse 12. From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jews kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." What travesties of justice! They accused him falsely using lying witnesses. They punished him before he was sentenced. Look at 19, 1-3. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in purple robes and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, O King of the Jews!" And they struck him in the face. So he was flogged with the cruel Roman whips and made a plaything for the soldiers. And finally, he was sentenced to death even though he was innocent. 3 times, 18 verse 38, 19 verse 4 and 6, Pilate said, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." Even though he was totally convinced of Jesus' innocence, Pilate pronounced death. Let's look at the video.
I tell you, I find no fault in this man.
He calls himself a king.
And
We have no king but Caesar. And you know good and well that acknowledging Jesus as king is nothing more than treason.
then bear record that I am innocent of this man's death, for I find no fault in him. I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See you to it.
Pilate proclaimed Jesus innocent, but sentenced him to death. The point of those 6 trials was to show that the spotless Lamb of God was innocent, totally innocent. He could not die for the sins of the world unless he was sinless himself. Next time, we'll look at the last 7 words that Jesus said. What were these last 7 words? And what happened when Jesus died? Bye.